Hey everybody, Mary Z back once again for Voice Hacks. So today I want to talk about a big question, explain a huge concept, and dispel some myths and inaccuracies about the concept of breathing from the diaphragm. So, in today's tutorial for Voice Hacks, I wanted to talk about the whole concept of breathing from the diaphragm, powering your air from your stomach. What does this even mean? I have so many people who are completely confused about this. And part of the reason for people's confusion is the fact that many voice teachers and well intended theater coaches and choir teachers actually don't know it accurately either. And I think a lot of you can understand what I'm talking about. This is a pretty hard concept to understand that actually took me a while to understand. So first thing is that your voice is a wind instrument. It's kind of a combination string wind instrument. It's shaped a lot like strings and the chords function and vibrate a lot like strings, but also kind of like nothing else in existence. They are also their own unique thing. But the movement is powered by air. And if air is not flowing into the chords, we actually can't get them to vibrate and we can't get them to create the proper sound. So we need to power most of our sounds with air. In the case of distortion, most of our distortion is not made from our actual vocal cords. Raspy singing and whatnot should be done with the tissues in the soft palate and the sinuses by shaking them around. Hey! And sometimes the false chords too. But this is all done with air. There's no muscle you can shake to make those things move. So, how do we get our air propelling? Well, we have to do it from the stomach, like we were talking about. Just to remind us and explain, let's go back to high school anatomy class and think about what the diaphragm muscle actually is and where it is. So, the diaphragm muscle is our flat piece of muscle underneath our lungs. And what it does is it actually makes you inhale, not really exhale. It flexes to cause suction. We don't just magically inhale. Something has to create suction. You can't feel this happening. All you do is think about inhaling. We can strengthen that muscle and learn to inhale more deeply and to get a stronger diaphragm. But diaphragmatic breathing is really all about the inhale. And then when we control our exhale, we're actually going to be doing it with our six pack muscle, the abdominis. When we exhale, our diaphragm sort of releases and relaxes. And part of that release, when it's not pulling, will help you exhale initially. But really, if you want to push the air out, normally the weight of gravity helps us with the rest of our exhale, like this. But when we're singing or screaming, you've noticed we don't want the chest rising and falling. What you don't want to be doing is this. Wow, wow, like these kind of things. Hey, why not? Because when you do that, the weight of your ribs collapsing on your lungs causes you just to expel all of your air in a very short burst. And you don't actually have any control over what you're doing. And then when we don't have air powering our vocal cords, they can move a little bit, but they don't have any control and they'll likely just slam, which means they're going to be slapping together like this and we're going to be shouting. So without air, it's not much our voice can do. We actually need air to get our voice to function properly, to have a lot of volume without strain or pain. So we want to try not to drop the chest and we want to try to do it with our abdominis. Breathing from the diaphragm, the name of the technique, really is only named for the inhale. When we exhale, we're actually breathing from the abdominis, and we're going to be using the six pack muscle on the front of our abdomen. This muscle we can very much feel and we have direct control over to squeeze the guts back against the lungs. When you inhale properly and the lungs are full, it displaces all of your guts. When we're doing singing, when we fill the lungs with air, there's no room inside of our torso. Everything in our body is packed in there so tightly. There's not space between our guts and our lungs. Everything's touching throughout the torso. So what does that mean? What it means is when you fill the lungs with air, it's going to displace your guts, but not in some kind of Santa Claus potbelly way, in a 360 expansion. So I would encourage you to throw out and get rid of any old theater breathing exercises. These were taught to me as well, where we're concentrating on trying to make a Santa Claus potbelly. such as breathing on the floor, laying on the floor with a book on your stomach. I don't want you guys to do any of that. Why? Because that just teaches you sort of to learn to stick your stomach out and make a Santa Claus pot belly. It doesn't teach you to fill the lungs, which is the more important part. If you have empty lungs, we won't be able to squeeze back against them with our abdominis to project our singing or our screaming. So we have to try to 360 expand rather and focus on filling the lungs rather than creating a pot belly. This is super important for us to realize. We have to have air in the lungs, or squeezing back against an empty pot belly, an empty set of lungs, is not going to power our voice. So let me show you how it works when we start to squeeze back against it. I'm going to do a fry scream here. I'm going to 360 inhale, and then when I project the scream, you're going to notice that my chest is stable. I'm not going to do it by like slamming down on my rib cage or trying to expel the air that way. I'm going to do it by flexing my abdominis. And what that's going to do is it's going to push my soft guts inward, and it's going to push those guts onto the bottom of the lungs and project the sound. What's going to happen is my chest will be really stable, but you'll see my abs go inward as I project the sound. So let me show you. So I'm going to put one hand here and one hand flat on my lower abdomen, and it's going to look like sucking in, but I assure you it's flexing. So I'm going to inhale. Now I'm going to flex. Yo! Etc. So we inhale, and then we crunch at the same time as we scream. Yo! That's how you want to do it. And it takes time to learn to do this. And I really want to be clear that it's a flexing, like doing a sit up in place for no reason. So you inhale, contract. And that's what you're doing the entire time, every sentence, like you're doing when you're screaming. Inhale, flex. Inhale, flex. You're like an accordion, and that's how it works properly, okay? This is the proper breathing from the diaphragm that all people should be doing in all styles. This is the way they teach it for classical singing as well. So this is not a thing isolated to screaming. We want to remember the stomach is like a gas pedal, so you don't always need to be flexing that hard. If you're singing a nice, lovely ballad, just try to balance your chest and not let it drop. You don't need to actively squeeze. But if we're doing bigger, higher notes, more difficult things, and bigger screams, we need to flex the abdominis. And you can learn to flex that all the way from the pelvic floor as well. We want to flex almost from the Kegel muscles and the pelvic floor muscles all the way up if possible. Try to work your flexing lower into the abdominal cavity. You'll get more guts pushing on your lungs in time. Thanks, everybody. And this stuff can be very difficult to learn, and it's not very realistic to try to learn some of the singing and screaming stuff from videos. So if you want a little more attention, just click the link in the description below to book some individualized lessons on Skype. I give voice lessons to students all over the world every week, so please let me know if you need more help. You can come to lessons. Every person needs individualized attention, and some of these goals can take a considerable amount of time and effort and guidance. Lessons are typically your best place to start. Thanks, everybody, and stay safe out there. I hope you guys are all doing well. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon.